Thank you, Sky. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well this evening. I'm Katelyn Yarbrough,
And I'm Michelle Treece.
and we are your co-moderators for Conversations That Matter. I told you. So we are happy to have some wonderful guests with us tonight. This will be a great kickoff for the 2021 year. We have Sarah Sanders and Brittany Butler, and we're going to ask you all to tell us a little bit about yourselves. We can start with you, Brittany.
Awesome. My name is Brittany Butler. I am originally from New Orleans, Louisiana, moved to Churchill area in 2009 from Chapel Hill, and was here about 3 years. My husband works at Eastman Chemical, and I am also a chemical educator at ETSU. We left for about 3 years, moved to Akron, Ohio, and then we were lucky enough to come back in 2017. And I say I'm never leaving again. I am in Gray now, and we have 3 kids. And my husband's still at Eastman, I'm still at ETSU, and we are just busy trying to stay sane during these COVID times.
Totally understand that.
Yes.
That's awesome. All right, Sarah, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm from Illinois, Indiana area, Midwest. I grew up there. I met my husband online though, and he is not from out there. He's out from Wise, Virginia. And when we got married, we chose to move out here because there was no way that he was going to live any farther than Wise, Virginia. Definitely not farther than like Kingsport. I've been here ever since about 2011. And he works over at HMG, and I stay at home with my 2 little ones who are doing virtual school this year. It is not exciting. It is where we are, though.
I hear you on that. I have a son doing the same thing. So how do you guys know each other?
Yeah, so we met each other 2017-ish or 2018-ish at Host Unitarian Universalist Church. I was looking for, my husband and I were both looking for a community that we could kind of raise our kids in so that they could have an answer when they were not so politely where they go to church every week. So we wanted to give them an answer. And so we found Holston Valley Unitarian Universalist Church. And that's where I met Sarah. And we just did a lot of the religious education together and the adult education classes.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. I know that our kids are doing the same families group stuff also, so we did a lot in there. I think I taught your little one in sex ed a little bit, and then COVID happened, and now we're on the same committee. So that has definitely meant that we do a lot more talking now because of that.
That's good. So you guys are at a church that I think a lot of people would find a little different in this area. Do you ever hear that the Universalist Church is a little different? Or if you tell people where you go to church here in this area, do they kind of look at you from the side? Or is it pretty well received?
I kind of actually avoid talking about it. I kind of dodge around the question a little bit, to be honest. Like, oh yeah, we went to church, and I don't really talk about it because I don't know how comfortable I am talking about it sometimes. Although I think that's changed in the past year or two. And I've been going since like late 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I would agree. Within the last year or so, I have definitely been more vocal about my attendance. Not that I didn't, agree with it or like it. It's just sometimes you're just tired and don't want to have the conversations. And it is a little bit difficult to get the entire just down in 20 seconds kind of thing. So, but yeah, in the last year or so, been much more vocal because, I mean, it really is just so open and welcoming of every and anything that there's nothing too out there that's not welcome at this place. So now, you know, we're trying to do a little more activism, if you will, or just making it more known that we're out there.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. I don't know that much about the Universalist Church. I was raised by an ordained minister in Church of God. I say 2 steps from snake handling. It was intense. So I did not, it was not open, we'll say that. So I'm very excited to learn a little bit more about where you worship in this church and your relationship. This is cool.
Yeah.
I did a program out there. I see Cindy Hassan. Hi, Cindy. With Cindy a couple of 3 years ago, and I think it's a wonderful church. It's if I do not attend church on a regular basis, but if I did, it would be that church. Yeah, I think it's pretty amazing, and it's very different from a lot of the typical churches in this area. So.
And I'll say, when I first started going there, it was like this running joke. They did not judge me when I would show up. And 4 months later, because of the kids or anything that was going on, when I showed up those 3 months later, it was like, hey, how you doing? And I would be able to drop off my kids at the nursery. And then when I was leaving, they would say, see you in 6 months. I was like, yeah, you got it. So it's like, it was totally just so easy to fit in there. Now we're obviously more regular attenders, but there was space for that too, so.
Yeah.
And I also grew up, my dad's also a minister, and that was actually really hard to go into a new church because, I mean, I'm biased. My dad's the best minister. But like going into this church and being able to get back that connection of like being able to sit down and stand up and sit down and sing hymns and do all the very nice church formal things while also feeling like accepted and being able to move that out into the community in a very activist way was exciting. So
That's great. That's great. So both of you guys have moved into Johnson City, Washington County, we'll say. How was that so very different from where you came from? I know, Brittany, you're coming from Louisiana via what is it, Churchill or Chapel Hill?
Chapel Hill for graduate school in North Carolina.
How was that migration into Johnson City, Washington County?
Yeah, so I was raised in New Orleans, went to high school there, went to college there, and then left and was the only family member in my immediate family who left New Orleans to go to graduate school in 2004-ish, 5-ish to North Carolina. And North Carolina was fine, but then my husband got a job at Eastman. And we went on the interview trip where they bring the spouse for 3 days, and we were in Kingsport. All I saw was that hot dog stand next to the tire place. I think there's a transportation port there or something now, depot in Kingsport. And I had a full-on panic attack. I was just like, oh my God, the tears, the like shaking, heart racing, because this is where we were gonna move. When I got back to Chapel Hill, I went to counseling for it. I was like, my husband's moving me to Kingsport. That much. I don't even know what reference. So like North Carolina, the only reference I had was like P.D. Pablo. North Carolina, throw your hands up. And so like Tennessee, I don't think I had any, I didn't even have that much of a reference for Tennessee. So it was just pure unknown, full-on panic attack. We ended up in, like I said, Churchill and near Rogersville in an apartment out there. So it was interesting. It was an adjustment and it was interesting.
Wow. How about you, Sarah?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't hear much about the South. Like I never had gone farther south than like North Carolina, which now that I say that is pretty far south, but I didn't know much about Tennessee. I knew that the guy I liked lived out in the Appalachians. And so that was really interesting. And so when I came down here, I had like no knowledge. I remember one of the biggest culture shocks was, I remember out in the Midwest, when it's time to leave like a family gathering, I say, hey, I gotta go. And then I stand up and I give everyone hugs and I put on my coat and I'm out the door in about 5 minutes. End of story. No one's offended. There's not like any like, oh, hey, are you really concerned or anything like that. I come down here and we do that. I tell Matt and my kids, and I'm like, hey, it's time to go. Put on my coat, out the door. Apparently with my in-laws, they thought for a long time that I hated them. And I'm like, I just don't want to spend forever saying goodbye. And I find I have learned how to lean into the long goodbye. So goodbye down here takes about a good 45 minutes. Like you got to say like, all right, hey, we're leaving. Oh, that's right. Let's go have a very important conversation in the kitchen. Let's go grab all the food that you made because you made us enough for like 5 meals, which is amazing. Oh, let's say goodbye again. Let's give hugs again. Let's have another very important conversation at the door. Those did not exist in Illinois. So that was a big shock.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So let's see, we have a set of questions that we typically ask. So for you, Sarah, since we have you up, at least on my screen, you're there. When was the first time you met someone of a different race than yours?
Probably when I was little. I'm trying to think back. I feel like it probably would have been around, like, I remember that there were people like in my elementary school. And which is funny because like my elementary school was in Indianapolis, so which is big. And then I went to middle school in Bloomington Normal, Illinois. And I remember that my parents ended up becoming friends with a Black family, and they became like really good, close friends with this family. Like I remember like we would go over and like they would watch us every so often. And there were definitely a few other kids in the middle school. Which is funny, so I guess the first time would probably have been about when I was about 12. That I can like distinctly remember having a conversation and saying, oh, hi, I'm Sarah Olson. And they'd say, oh, hi, I'm so-and-so. And then talking and doing more beyond like passing in like the hallway. So.
Age 12, wow.
Yeah.
Age 12.
How about you, Brittany?
Yeah, New Orleans is pretty diverse in terms of their demographics. However, I grew up around my family, and my grandmother on my mother's side is biracial. My dad, same thing. I think his mom might be biracial, and we have a lot of lighter complected folks in my family. And then my mom sent my brother and I to a predominantly white Catholic elementary school. And so I grew up Roman Catholic until like graduate school. But, and so I kind of had, I don't know, different experience in that I didn't learn I wasn't white until kindergarten. So I just assumed that I was the same as everybody else in my school, K through 8th, because my brother and I were the only Black kids in the school. And my mom's lighter complected, my grandmother's biracial. And so I just thought everyone was white. And I distinctly remember coming home and asking my mom, I was like, I'm not white. And she was like, what are you talking about? A question. And I was like, oh, and I think I said, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
That was my first. Why didn't you tell me? I was very mad at the time.
And was there a situation in the classroom that triggered you to say, what do you mean?
Yeah, I think I have this vague memory being on like a playground or something and maybe mentioning something and having people tell me I wasn't white. And then that continued along. Just, it was just this constant mentioning of differences. Anything I did, it was like, oh yeah, but your hair is this way, or oh yeah, but you know, you're like this. Always just constant mention of differences. So I never had that issue again, right? And I think it's a smaller version, I think, of what society does a little bit. Like they always want to remind you of the differences. And so that started for me like in kindergarten.
Wow,
That's intense.
that is. So both of you have kids. Have your kids come home and talked about, hey, Mom, my friend is not black, they're dark brown, and I'm not white, I'm peach, or something like that? I mean,
That's what I was taught. My dad taught art, and so before he became an ordained minister, and so it was like Crayola taught me racing like lightly shade peach, lightly shade burnt sienna. That's what I am. It's like a nice little cross hatching. But
wow. Have your kids come home with comments, especially in their younger ages?
I'll go there. It's funny, my oldest, my son Ethan, is 10 now. And I think I mentioned something, and he had the same thing. I mentioned something about his Mimi, my mom, being black. And it might have been with like the Ruby Bridges thing, because she's the same age as Ruby Bridges. And so whenever they do the little civil rights talk in their classes, I tell them, oh, Mimi was born the same time as Ruby Bridges, so she was in a segregated school. And my son, same thing, Mimi's black? What? You didn't tell me? And I'm just like,
They didn't tell me.
as much as you try to like have kids listen to you, they never do. And so, you know, so I should have mentioned my kids are multiracial as well, because my husband's white, and so my kids are biracial. And so he'll go around saying that he's some black. So
I'm black. I like that.
I did too.
Wow.
You did too. I'm some black,
Some black.
passing occasionally.
yeah. So he'll say that, oh, so and so didn't know I was some black, and I told him.
Oh, yeah.
That is beautiful.
That is.
Yeah.
I remember my oldest, I remember he came home and he had in his class, and I think he still does now, virtual, who knows, two girls who had the exact same name. But he would come home and one was black and one was white, or is. And that's how he described me. He'd say, oh, this one, with this name, she's white, and this one, she's black, or like black, this girl, and white, this name. And we've tried to kind of have that kind of conversation of watching out how like we describe that, but it's really kind of like tricky, because I don't want him coming home and saying, oh, like black Sarah and like white Sarah kind of thing. Like it's such like a, like, I'm like, I don't, nuh-uh. And I remember my littlest, he got from my sister, because he'd asked for a baby doll. So he got a little baby doll that had brown skin. And it was a boy, so, which was super rare. You don't find many boy baby dolls, and you don't find many brown boy baby dolls. And he wanted to take it to preschool, and he was going to say, I want to take my brown baby to preschool to show off. And he was 3. And I remember going to the teachers and saying, this is just this doll, and we're trying to give it like an actual name. But I remember that there were those distinctions of like where they look at that and they'd be like, oh, this is my skin color, I'm white, and then this person is not. This person has black skin, or this person is brown. So there have been a few instances.
That's interesting. Yeah, in my age, my quick way of describing people, and I actually have 2 friends who have the same name. One is black, one is white. And in my phone, it says white, their name's Nikki, white Nikki, black Nikki. And I love it. But it's interesting where little kids see that, but it's not at all racist. Mm-hmm. It's crayons,
Yeah.
And when they have the same name, how do you, differentiate? So it's that innocentness that's, I think, is so beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
there's that place where it begins to shift into, okay, this is not so beautiful.
Yeah, like so I don't have children, don't want them either, but if I did and had a child and we were at a store, like I've seen this happen at the grocery store or wherever, and the child's like, Mommy, she's black, or why is she black, or, why is she brown, whatever, and they're like, shh, we don't say that, and it's like, you can say that, yeah, why?
It's
Give them
true.
an answer, It
Yeah.
people need to be told it's okay to say what people are.
Mhm.
I was
especially
waiting,
if they're
I was waiting for my kids at a ballet class, and a little kid came up to me and was like, "You're black." And I said, "Aren't I lucky?" I said, I'm sorry, you're not, their mom, I'm your mom, come. But I mean, but to me, this kid was like 7 or 8. And so at that age, I was wondering, like, why is that your first interaction with a person of another race? Again, pointing out the differences. And so, some kids, I guess, do have a hyper awareness to that, but yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
And I think a lot of times it is that innocence that speaks first. When years ago I taught with some high school kids, and I ran into one of the kids, one of my students, out in the public with her little sister who was probably 3. And the little sister was in the buggy at the store, and I was speaking to her sister, my student, and the little girl just says, "You're brown." So she must have been maybe 4 or 5. "You're brown." And I said, "Yeah, look." And I said, "It doesn't come off." So I did this, and she was like, "Whoa." And so she did it and looked. I'm like, "What about that?" Fast forward 2 or 3 weeks, and I run into the little girl with her mother, who I had never met. So this woman doesn't know me, but that's the little girl. And she says to her mom, "Hey, Mom, that's the brown lady." Well, her mom is panicking. "Oh my God, I'm going to get beat up by this black lady." And so I had to calm her down and say, "Hey, it's okay. I teach your daughter, and I ran into your daughter and your youngest child at the store, and I went to the little kid again, and I said, look, it still doesn't come off." And she was just as happy as can be, So it's that first impression. She must apparently had never ever met a black person. So again, I was like, well, I'm glad I could be the first that you meet and, engage with some black skin and know that it's fine. But it's interesting with kids.
It is.
And then they grow up, have different opinions. So,
Wow.
well, you got a question? We got any questions online here?
Let's see. We've got some things here.
Also, a funny story about kids' innocence as well. So
What's that?
I have a birthmark on my neck. I don't know if we can show it, but I used to have really short hair, and it goes all the way up to back about here. And I remember I ran into a 5-year-old, and he pointed to it, and he was like, "What's that on your neck?" I'm like, "It's a birthmark." And he says, "Does that mean you were born?" I was like, Yes, it does." And we walked away because I didn't know what else to say.
Right.
And because I'm a little bit cheeky like that, and he just accepted it. But I found it funny that he was just like, "What's that on your neck?" Which was way better than like what adults have said, which is, "What's that on your neck? Is it a hickey?" And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got a question for you, Britt. When you were in the Rogersville area, when you first moved here, was it a welcoming community for the most part, or did you feel othered? How was that navigating since you had a panic attack mildly?
Did have a panic attack, but it's funny that I was raised, my mom made I hope she's not on here. Yeah. Made a conscious decision to raise my brother and I in predominantly white spaces because she knew that's what the world was, right? I'm a Black girl. My name is Brittany. Like, she did that on purpose. And so my elementary school was predominantly white, my high school predominantly white, my college, my graduate school, and so I'm used to it in that sense. I just wasn't used to the ruralness, I think. So I didn't realize how much of a maybe city girl I am, I'll claim it. Because everything here is about hiking and nature and oh, look at the beautiful mountains. And I'm like, show me a postcard, that'll be sufficient. My husband likes to hike, and he's like, oh, let's drive 45 minutes to go hike up this mountain. And I'm like, no. And so I bought a pair of hiking shoes, but I think I still have them. Like I just bought them because I like shopping, right? And not actually hiking. So the panic attack wasn't from that aspect. And what I did, I could not find, I have a master's in chemistry, and I couldn't find a job using my degree when I first moved to that Church Hill area. And one of my friends suggested you should go work at a bank or a credit union. Well, there was an ECU nearby the apartment. And so I applied online at ECU, and like 15 minutes later, they called me. And so I worked at ECU for like 10 months, and that was the best experience because, right, the public was coming in. I was able to get to know folks, and it was just interesting working with a lot of people who had gone to volunteer high school. And this was about the time when Obama was president, I think, or just got newly elected. And people were trying to come in and say, yeah, I don't know about this Obama guy. And I'm like, I'm not a sympathetic ear. Like, just, they would try to, you know, so that was like the worst of it. That was like the worst of it, just trying to, you know, talk politics a little bit, and I just would smile, and because we were being recorded, and just say, have a nice day.
Here's your check.
Yeah, here's your, you know, so.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you go for it.
I was going to say, we've got a comment in here, and this is something that I dealt with, and being like lighter skinned, but still being, I'm biracial, half black, whatever. Someone says, one thing I've never understood is how much blackness do you have to be black? And that is a question that I have been asked. And I'm curious if you know, like, are you really black? You almost have to like give them show your badge, like, it's cool.
No, I've just been told my blackness doesn't count. Because I guess my proximity to whiteness, or because my husband's white, or I don't know, right? That the stereotypical things people attribute to white people, if I liked that stuff, then that kind of, I feel like the black card has punch things on it, and if you get 10, you don't, like, your punch card is revoked. And so that was my experience. Just, it's like, oh, you like Shakespeare? Nah. Oh, you like ballet? Nah, you know. So my favorite music is like, oh goodness, my chair. My favorite music is like Green Day and alternative music, 9 Inch Nails, Slipknot, stuff like that. So yeah, that was, I didn't know rap music, so that was a knock against me.
Colorism is a thing.
Yeah.
People do that. We don't understand it either.
Well, and one thing about that, with going back to the question, how much black is enough to be black? You know, there are two sides of that, because back in the Jim Crow day, or whenever, it was one drop, one dot.
Mm-hmm.
And so that part was like, you could have a quarter of a black person in your system, you black.
Yeah.
But that was to deny you of everything because you black. But I totally get what you're saying. I mean, there's kind of a joke within the black community. Sorry, black people, if I'm letting our secrets out, but there's a thing called, you know, I'm taking your black card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to get my black card back for certain reasons. I'm kind of like you. I mean, I love classical music. I would love to sing opera, and I sing opera in the shower, and you know, so there's a lot of stuff that I do that doesn't look black. So again, my card has been punched so much that I don't have a black card. I know where it is. I know who's got my card. I'm getting it back. But, you know, there is a thing within the Black community of, no, you do not count as Black enough for us.
Well, and again, I'll go back to my mom. I think she kind of intentionally did that in a sense. So in New Orleans, the schools, everything is private schools. If you have any means, you go to the private schools because the public schools aren't that good. And the motto, the unofficial motto of New Orleans is thank God for Mississippi, because on the rankings of like public school performance, at least we would beat out Mississippi in terms of performance. And so you would go to private schools if you could, and there were all girls and all boys Catholic high schools that people went to. And so there was an all Black or mostly Black all girls Catholic high school. And I told my mom I wanted to go there. And she said, no, you can't go there because you'll get beat up. And she's like, and wouldn't let me apply. So I had to go to the predominantly white Catholic school.
Wow.
That's crazy. My parents did the same thing to me in Savannah, Georgia. I went to a charter middle school. My dad taught high school, and there was literally, I will never forget, there was a shooting at his high school, but Savannah's demographics, you know, it's way more, there's way more Black people there than there were here, but they definitely kept me in a bubble. But then when we moved here, my dad, first thing out of the moving truck was, where are the Black people? And then he was always trying to count how many Black friends I had. And I was like, well, you brought me here, you know, I didn't do this to myself.
I know someone made a comment up there too. If you were reading the chat, it said that they, I think, came to Jonesborough and their son was, you know, wondering, where are the Black folks in town? And at some point they saw a Black person, and he was excited and said, Mom, they do have a Black person. And the mom, was kind of blushing, like, I'm sure, saying, shh, you're talking too loud. But that's one of the things I do. What do you think about I would say the lack of diversity in Washington County collectively? Sarah, that's for you.
Yeah. I mean, I wish that there was more diversity, partly so that both my kids would be just like generally exposed to it, like going to like grocery stores or in areas where you would typically just see people going out and doing like daily lives. Because I know that like our area is one of the widest areas in all the United States. I feel like it's one of those things where I don't really know what to like do about it, but I do think that it is a thing in the area. I'm thinking on how to give a response. I'd love to hear what Brittany has to say also. Because what do I think about? I mean, I wish it wasn't like that. I wish it was more diverse.
Have you ever questioned yourself or with your significant others, you know, do we stay here or do we go somewhere that is more diverse? Because I know I have that conversation with another friend that is biracial, has multiracial children, and she's constantly like, I got to get out of here. I can't do it. I did it myself, and I'm not going to do this to my children, and I don't want her to go. But then I'm like, I kind of get that. So, Brittany or Sarah?
I like it here. I'm going to stay. I did leave. I left, like I said, my husband got transferred to Akron, Ohio. And before then I thought, oh, I could live anywhere, you know, doesn't really matter. That is not true. I cannot. I need to be in the South. So the South is interesting. There, of course, there's racism everywhere. Of course, there's prejudice everywhere. I love the South because, you know, I've been on ETSU campus and I've been on my campus as a college student. I've had people tell me, I usually don't like Black people, but I like you. Or,
because you don't have the Black card.
Just rub it in, Michelle.
It's that same line of you are not like the rest. You're not
Yeah.
like most of the other Black people.
So you're okay, but yeah. But at least I feel like it's more overt. At least you know where people stand in the South. I went to Akron, Ohio, and just everyone was so unfriendly to the point where, you know, I moved up there and I would say, hey, how you doing? And it's a Northern thing. Hey, how you doing? And no one speaks, right? They jump because you're talking to them in the grocery store, or a lady, my neighbor, I shouldn't say a lady, I lived there 3.5 years and did not speak to a single neighbor, or I should say a single neighbor did not speak to me. The kid will walk, I was sitting outside in the driveway, the kid would walk by, I would say, hey, how you doing? The mom just shuffle the kid away, and I'm just like, okay, whatever. Just so unfriendly, and you don't really know where you stand with people. And I feel like it was the same prejudice, the same sort of covert racism that exists everywhere, but you don't know where you stand. And I would much prefer to know where I stand. And I much prefer to not have snow. And so I forced my husband, I said, after 3 years, I said, get Eastman to transfer you back to Kingsport, or I am going to New Orleans and live there. And you can try to meet up with me whenever you get transferred. And so luckily he was able to get transferred back to Kingsport in 2017. So
Yeah.
See, I love snow, and I mean, I'll never be able to leave here either. Ah, man. I mean, I was born in Maine in the middle of winter, like as far north as you can get. So I need more snow. But I've also discovered that, like, and I don't know if this is where I moved here when I was like 22, and I just, as I grew older, I started becoming more aware. But like, I noticed I didn't talk about racism and all the things that just get packaged with that until after I moved out here. As I was growing up, it was, I'm not racist, I have a Black friend. It was, I'm not racist, I've never said any bad words to people, kind of thing. And that's just something like I've noticed as I've lived here, is that it seems like as though we talk about it a lot more down here, even though it is so much more white. I feel a lot more aware, and it's almost a lot easier to point it out because I can say all these other things and you can just kind of see it. So
Since this past summer, of course, with George Floyd and all of that, have you had more conversations with people about racism? Have you kind of, had your eyes open and lights turned on with that? Is that what you think is leading to a lot more conversation about it, or
Or is it
I
people
think-
like us that are making you talk about it?
it's people like you all.
in front of thousands of people?
In front of thousands. Yeah, I mean, there were like the white supremacy teach-ins that I went to a few years ago that really kind of, I remember a comment was made that said that someone once taught their kids to not see color. And I think actually, Michelle, you pointed out saying, no, we have to see color. We can't sit here and say, to say that. And so I remember started to get more conversations about that, like in places that I felt safe to, people within the church and stuff like that. And I remember over this past summer, I've had more conversations with like my family members. I know both my siblings are on here. I remember having like conversations with like my parents about it. I felt a lot more confident speaking up about it on Facebook, even though I already had for a while. It really kind of just overflowed, and I was like, this is silly. We've got to start talking more often. We can't be quiet. So and a little bit of, people saying, all right, we got to talk about this. And then a little bit of like starting to see it. So
That's good. That's good.
I think it's become a little bit, well, I'm biased, obviously. I think it's a little easier to say that there is a line drawn now, especially after what happened on the 6th, of like, if you can't outright, say the magic words, then you've been labeled, you're being watched. We know it's like what Brittany said about it being overt. Down here, it's nice to know who's got you in their crosshairs. You know, if I see a crazy decal on the back of somebody's truck, I make sure to put my sunglasses on real quick so they can't see me checking out them. And, you know, I mean, I've got a photographic memory. I've got like 2 or 3 license plates that I've got memorized just because if I see them rolling by, I'm on high alert. But do you think
put that in the chat, Katelyn?
Do what?
I said, go ahead and put that in the chat.
So you know who they are. I can give you a full description. But yeah, do you think that after the 6th and just everything, the last or the beginning of this year, it's kind of just like I'm going to say it, the white supremacists have just, they're leaving the hoods at the house and just rolling. They're rolling out.
It's a comfort. Definitely a shift in the comfort level of people coming out and saying this. I would say January 6th was hopefully the last culmination of that. But I was in Ohio for the 2016 election. Ohio is typically like a purpley state. And just driving around to the grocery store, I would see mostly women on the corner holding Trump signs. And I was like, that's odd. And then seeing people selling Trump paraphernalia. And it was just like, it was just very different. I never paid attention to politics, probably before 2016. Just, you know, had the thought, oh, on the local level, it doesn't matter who's in the White House, right? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't trickle down all the way. But after that election, it changed. I think it changed. People came out of the woodworks, like you said, was much more overt with their prejudice and what their view of America is or what they want it to be. And that was directly against, I think, minorities and other underrepresented groups.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. I remember in 2016, like it felt like there was like line after line. There was a way that people were being mocked. And then it was the statements. And it was like, surely, and returning to my partner or like my dad or any other people and being like, surely this is the line. And then we reached out and it's like, surely this is the line. And then it was never the line. And then like the next 4 years happened. And it felt like even like talking to people about like last year's impeachment, they were like, this is the line. This is what brought Nixon down. This is what's going to bring Trump down. And I'm like, we're not, we're in free fall. And so I guess, I mean, I want the 6th to be the line, and I plan to not shut up about it because I want it to be the line. We should have had the line like 5 years ago was when the line was. And we have like tossed that line in the garbage, and it's time to like, we're just done. So.
I agree. It brought a sense of responsibility to those of us that are like, are y'all watching what I'm watching? Like, is this really happening? Like, I was downstairs watching Veep. If anybody watches the show Veep with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I'd rather watch a sitcom or a satire of the government because I was so over it. And Blake texted me and I didn't respond. And then he called me and was like, you need to turn on the news right now. And I was like, I don't want to watch it. And he was like, no. They're literally tearing the Capitol up. And I was like, you are a lie. Yeah. And then it's just like, okay, so even now, people are just like, it wasn't that bad. It's fine. And I'm like, not borderline, there's trauma. Yeah. And being here and just being like, okay, I bet you were in DC on the 6th. I see you. I see you. But it's nice to know that you feel that sense of like, we've got to have that line back. And then, you know, you both having children, it's like, what are we going to leave for our posterity, for the generations that are coming next? Is it going to be this kind of free for all, or are we going to have some sort of, you know, decency? Can we bring that back? It'd be nice to have some.
And it's unfortunate how much those, you know, negative thoughts and negative ideas about people gets passed down. That was a serious issue. My son in pre-K would come home and say, so-and-so told me that two men can get married. So-and-so told me that, you know, so-and-so is going to burn in hell or something. Oh, Hillary Clinton is going to burn in hell. Pre-K. And I'm like, when did you talk about this? Like, what is happening during your snack time? Like, and I had to tell the teacher, like, you know, what is going on? But, you know, he's at 6 years old, you're obviously parroting what your parents are saying or what you're hearing at home. And it's just unfortunate that, you know, we have such a spectrum of, such a far spectrum from decency, I think, to where people want their kids to know that homosexuality is wrong. They want their kids to know and go tell their friends that Hillary Clinton did such and such as a pizza parlor or whatever.
Eat babies.
Babies, yeah. Wild.
Wow, word.
Yeah, who's moderating snack time? Exactly.
Nobody.
Story time before nap time, so you can meditate on these thoughts. Ah, that is, Ethan, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the chat. So speaking of drawing the line and holding accountability, I am very curious to know what your thoughts are on the talks about the equity board for Johnson City. I know, Sarah, you don't live in Johnson City, and then Britt, you're in Gray, which I'm not. Is that
Close enough.
right?
Eh,
It's Gray.
It's a gray area. Yeah.
It's close enough.
To Johnson City to get some of my mail sometimes, so I figure that counts.
You got to say that. It's part of the Tri and the Tri-Cities.
Yeah. It was wild. I thought a community equity board was low-hanging fruit. Like, of course you would want an opportunity to bring people together to talk about community equity. And it just seemed, and I'm naive in that sense that I never would have thought someone would be critical of a community equity board. And so I have to, as an educator, I have to, or I guess I choose to assume that more education is needed, more conversations are needed. But I think it's a pandering to the majority to say that we don't want to make this space available for marginalized people because there just aren't that many of them. And that was the message I heard. So why do this thing for a small number of people? I'm here to represent the majority, like everything else in this country, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, and like that harkens back almost like an earlier question of Washington County being so white. And it's like, well, no wonder, because everyone's leaving because you all aren't being represented on like the county boards or anything. I remember I've watched both the video and then I rewatched the black-white dialogue, the recording of it. I remember when I watched the commission video thing itself about the equity board, I was prepared for the statement, white heterosexual male not need apply. So when I got to that part, I was like, okay, here's that one. And then they got to the part where they said something about having to sit at the adult table. And I had to rewind it. And I was like, did we seriously just compare those to sitting at the adult table? It was the most bizarrest thing. It was bonkers. Bonkers.
So you think that's where the young children are finding out about the, I mean, it all correlates, you know? And so
It does.
I think it's a very good idea, obviously. I mean, I've been having conversations about this since last year. But you know, if you've got people in the street wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen, and they're being, instead of listening, you want to, you know, name call, make fun of, snowflakes, whatever, get a job, and then to just completely just disregard all of that, and especially over what sparked everything. It's just, it's very interesting of how we're still having to fight tooth and nail, but in a very polite and systematic way that we can, you know, get to the adult table so that we can have a conversation.
And I think one of you mentioned that it's 2021, you know, and we're still having to have these discussions, still having to explain equity. I'm also a member of the Junior League of Johnson City, and I was past president, and I'm past president this year, president last year. And I remember I was at one of the Black-White dialogue meetings, and there were some young African-American women there who wanted to know how to get more involved in the community. And I was like, oh, have I got a thing for you? And I said, I'm president of the Junior League this year. And her response was like, you're the president of the Junior League? Like, kind of like they let you in? And I'm like, yeah, I know, and I'm trying to bring more. But
we really are, though. Hold the door open.
You're brown and fine.
I'm in the Junior League too, and you're the reason I am there. I'm not even gonna lie.
So to your earlier point, I choose to stay. I want to be, I've heard Michelle talk about, you know, you go to things, you be seen, you be visible, you look for other people there and see who's in the room, and invite other people to spaces to try to increase the diversity of those spaces. And, you know, there's just article after article, study after study proving the benefit of diversity, yet some people still don't think either it's not necessary or no one's interested in it. And again, it's 2021 and we're still trying to fight some of these same fights. And I think it is bringing people out more to speak more on these issues. Like, I never thought I would watch city commission videos and recordings. I'm 38 years old. That's something that, you know, you envision older generations doing. But it's hilarious when you know, it's like, oh, what you doing? I'm watching the city commission video from January 17th or something. And like, I should not get riled up by, you know, city commission videos, and just having to follow along. You know, yeah, just never thought I would be doing that.
You know, you refer to that as low-hanging fruit. And that is a wonderful, wonderful analogy, because it is such an easy thing.
Yeah.
Just to set up a board like that, in my opinion, that's easy.
Yeah.
You know, it wouldn't be about trying to recruit a bunch of people, because you got people who are already interested. Easy thing to do. The final result, great for everybody. So I like that analogy. I might use it. I'll give you credit. But that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So I've got a question for both of you. Since we're kind of heading toward the end, reminder to everyone, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat for our guests or for ourselves, and we will happily get to them if we've got time. But I know that with your church, you are getting into activism. Do you have any calls to action? Are there any programs or anything that you want to give a shout out? Because I know I'm very interested. I've been scared I'm gonna set fire if I step into a church. Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I've asked my brother.
You can step into that church.
See, and so I've heard, church. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put my toe in the water. But if there's like, I saw that there's a Zoom. I've been taking notes. I wrote down the website, but please let us know what's going on, because I'm very interested.
And full disclosure, Sarah mentioned to me, there's a Susan on our chat here, but Sarah mentioned earlier that we had met through the UU Church, and years ago with Cindy Huss, We worked, several of us worked on a project called White Supremacy Teaching. And I had never been to the church, I don't think. So I Googled my navigator, where am I going? And it is deeply into the woods.
Yup.
So my friends were like, Michelle, you're going to a white supremacy teaching in the woods? You better let people know. But it's a wonderful, wonderful church. I have friends that go there. It really is. I think I personally call myself, and for those folks that are very religious, please don't take offense, but I call myself a Seventh-day Jehovah Methodist with a touch of Jewish Catholicism. And I truly think it's at that church.
Yep.
So, of all of them around, I really do believe that. So.
I'm already getting messages to please come to your church on my phone, which is why I dropped it. Forgive me. I'm gonna give it a try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can talk about this, Cindy. Oh, sorry.
I was saying, talk about the summer camp. Yeah.
I will talk about the summer camp. So I'm a part of two really big things. I teach comprehensive inclusive sex ed, and we can get to that in a minute, but I co-direct a summer camp with the DRE of the church, which is designed to bring kids in from the community. And about half of our students are from the church and half are from the community. And it uses Harry Potter as a basis, but it teaches kids about the magic of who they are as themselves, how to use that magic. It teaches things like science. So they do like your basic like volcanoes and things, but they also get like wands, and they just get to be around a bunch of other adults who are constantly affirming and saying, you are special and you are good and you are inherently worthy. And all of these like just wonderful things. And we're not able to do it in person this year because thank you, COVID, but we are doing a kit. So that way you could like sign up and we can send your kid something. We're super excited about it, and we feel like that's something that we want to use to continue outreaching into the community. And then I know that the OWL program that is there, which is what teaches comprehensive inclusive sex ed, I'm gonna get this wrong, and the founders are gonna be like, what are you saying, Sarah? But they started founding Rise Healthy for Life using OWL as a springboard, and they started being able to bring that out into the community to start to end things like period poverty, to bring contraception to all sorts of areas. Cindy Haas is the one to talk to about that. So I know that she mentioned it on here, but I mean, the church has a lot of activism spots in it. And I think that that's what also really drew me, was that it's a church of activism. It wasn't a church of just sitting down and standing up and singing, but it was a church to get you to go out into the world and think of how you can use your like humanist values and things like that. So like, if I haven't burnt up, I don't think you will. And I don't think Brittany hasn't burnt up yet.
Well, and that's what I said. I said, they let me teach Sunday school.
They did.
Not only did I not catch on fire, I could teach the Sunday school and have it.
Well, then you're saying I've got a chance.
But
That's awesome.
Your feet might smolder like a little bit, like it's a little hot on the foyer.
I'll wear 2 pairs of socks. I'll wear some thick soled shoes. Okay.
The bicycle shorts.
Some bicycle shorts.
so I've been really active. I officially joined in 2018, and just in talking to my mom and everything, she said, "Is that?" And she knows it's in the woods. She said the same thing. You know, it's in the woods, and so I don't even like nature, but I still go there. But she said, "Is that a cult?" She said, "Is that a cult you're going to?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" Because she said, "No one likes going to church." So it must be a cult. Oh, I do have a McKinney Center pen, Sky.
Did you steal it?
It's from MLK Day.
Feel it.
I think we're going to have to invite your mom here, Brittany. She needs to be on our show. Will you join us together? Can we Zoom her in?
We should do a mom's, yeah.
We can do Sarah and Brittany's mom. That would be
Great.
I would definitely be on. I don't want to moderate though. I want to watch and be in this chat box. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, thank you all so much for sharing about your friendship and your relationship and your stories and, you know, your viewpoints on this region and just everything. I think everyone wants to be friends with you now.
Yeah. I think this has been one we've had a lot of laughs, and I think this month for January was a perfect time for some laughs.
February?
I'm sorry, February.
Well, it's our month. It's our month.
Forgot. This is the shortest, but hey, it's ours.
Right?
Yes. Sorry about that.
So we always have a call to action, but first, since it is February, Michelle's got a little Black History, little tidbit fact for it. Oh, you wrote that in the notes?
I'm sorry. Yes, I do. I just found this out today, and you guys will have to fill in the missing pieces because I just wrote one word. But
okay.
I think we all know Betty Boop, right? Little white girl with the hairdo, the big eyes, and you know, her dress is a little bit too short.
Mm-hmm.
That was characterized from a Black woman. Chat people, give us a hand if you knew that was true. Right? Just give us a little, you know, raise your hand that says on your little responses, I knew that was true.
If it makes you feel better, I did not know that until about an hour ago.
See, I don't think anybody knew.
All right.
So how about that? Look, see, I didn't know. Diane Nelson,
Mm-hmm.
she was my teacher back at ETSU. Hi, Diane. Yeah, so a little bit of information right there.
Yes.
Now you know.
The more you know. So always our call to action, at least I know I can speak for Michelle as well,
Yes,
because
you
it's the
can.
step up and step out. Please do not hesitate to be involved in your community directly. I do think it is very important that you do watch the commission meetings or the alderman BMA meetings, wherever you may be. It's important to know what's going on because I think too many people take for granted that people are just, you know, on cruise control doing what's right. And it's my shoes, I'm sorry.
Good.
And too many times you find out like, oh my goodness, that's what's really going on. I should have been paying attention because you could be sitting in that seat.
Mhm.
So don't call me for your campaign manager, but we will support you. But please, yes, just stay in tune and keep your finger on the pulse. And since it is Black History Month, definitely dive a little deeper into the history of our wonderful Black community and here in Tennessee for sure, and then the U.S., Washington County. Yeah, we're sitting in Black history right now
Right
at the
here,
McKinney
exactly.
Center, Booker T. Washington School. Pretty
Exactly.
cool.
Diane Nelson asked the question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Diane, where can we get a list of the email addresses of the city council members?
Ta-da.
Ooh, Diane.
Okay, somebody answered.
There you go. It's on the
Oh.
city website for Johnson City. There's city email address anyway. So yes, you can find their information there. And that is a good idea to contact your commissioners or aldermen or people in power. It's good to have a good relationship, whether it's via email or face-to-face when you're going in to pay your water bill, face-to-face with a mask on, obviously, when you're going to pay your bill or what have you when you're going down to a city hall. Just make sure you're showing your face so people know that hey, look, there are brown people here.
Right. And it doesn't come off.
And it won't come off.